So I was spoiled rotten, man. I mean, this was an amazing,
Yeah.
once in a lifetime
And
thing. And I'm a fan, I was a fan of Burgess Meredith. I was a fan of Danny DeVito and his Penguin. So to get to, walk in the shoes of those shadows was pretty extraordinary.
perfect. So, hi, I'm Jonathan Bloomberg, writing for movies in Sweden.
Hey, Jonathan, Colin. Nice to meet you.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. So,
Appreciate it.
I have, yeah, I've this year we've gotten both Sugar, which we spoke about then, and now this show, and it's two of my favorite shows this year. So you're on a roll.
Oh, that's cool. Thanks, man. It's good to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah, yeah. It's good for us as viewers at home that you're making great shows. That's for sure.
Oh,
So,
cool. Thank you.
so I was wondering, kind of, your way into this project was not as the usual route to get into a show. You kind of already had started to think about what this character was going to be for you, and then the idea to make the show appeared, and you could do even more with him. So how was it to kind of finally get to know that that was going to happen and that you were going to get to do all of this too?
It was exciting and it all came together. It seemed to come together from the moment of um I got greedy. We were doing the film and I knew I only had 5 or 6 scenes and the effort from the creative team that designed the body and Mike Marino, the makeup, and obviously Matt's script and all. It was so extraordinary. This village of creatives coming together to breathe new life into this time-honored character of Oswald Cobblepot, Oz Cobb in our show. And I ended up saying to Dylan Clark, our producer on the Batman set, about 2 months into the shoot, that we should do more with it, like we could do a TV show or something. And then I let it be. I let it go. I didn't think about it anymore. I finished the film. I wrapped with Matt Reeves. And then about a year later or something, Dylan called me and he said, "Look, we're talking to HBO. We're talking about doing a show, The Penguin." And I just thought, no way. Got so excited because I just thought there was so much there. There was so much life in the character. There was so much contradiction. There was so much fear and ambition and so much violence. And also there was tenderness in the character as well. There was comedy with the character. There was threat. There was just so much that I thought there was more to do than we had the chance to in the 5 or 6 scenes in the film. So yeah, when I heard that I was going to get what ultimately ended up being a year of the shoot because they did the actors strike was in the middle. So we shot 3 months in New York and then we stood down for the writers strike and then we went back to work. So the whole thing took a year and it was an extraordinary experience. I mean, it really was. Lauren LeFranc and her team of writers just did an extraordinary job, not just in psychologically designing and sculpting Oz as a very, very complex and again contradictory character, but all the characters in it, like Sal, um, Sophia Falcone and Cristin's amazing work, and Dee Dee playing my mother, Frances. I mean, Vic, Rhenzy plays Vic. All the characters had extraordinary backstories and extraordinary attention paid to detail of why they were the way they were in the show and why they were
Yeah.
aspiring to the things they were aspiring to. So I was spoiled rotten, man. I mean, this was an amazing,
Yeah.
once in a lifetime
And
thing. And I'm a fan, I was a fan of Burgess Meredith. I was a fan of Danny DeVito and his Penguin. So to get to walk in the shoes of those shadows was pretty extraordinary.
yeah, and now when people get to watch Batman 2 later on, that I don't know if you've started. No, it's next year you start to shoot that,
I
right?
believe next
So
year. Yeah, I haven't read it or
yeah,
anything.
yeah. So it will be even a meteor role that everyone will have been able to watch this and
He'll certainly
follow
have a bit of
what
backstory. There'll certainly be a greater context for who he is, and I think
yeah.
any of the many acts of violence that are depicted in this show will be part of what informs the audience's feelings about Oz the first time he appears on the screen.
So is there any of your previous characters that you wish that you had been able to be this greedy about and kind of do the
Oh,
8 hours of backstory?
oh, let me see. What did I not feel I was finished with? I don't know. No, I think I was good. Yeah. No, I felt like I could have the True Detective season two, which is another TV show. I got 8 hours on that as well, but I felt like I could have. I loved playing
and 10
Ravel
more.
Core. I loved
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I could have done more. I could have, it was never, it was always going to be what it was. I think was it 6 hours? But Ravel Coro, I remember finishing that and going, God, I feel like I could do this fella for a few seasons, but it was never on the cards.
Well, we're in a territory where things can happen. So so I
Yeah,
do hope that you get to go back to that character in some kind of way. So thanks a lot for taking the time to speak with me
thank you,
again
Philip.
today, and best of luck with the premiere now.
Thanks, man. All the best to you. Thanks for taking the
That
time.
was my first time on a set. I mean, it was my first job, and I didn't know the show because I couldn't afford HBO. So I knew it was a big show, but I'd never seen it. In fact, I didn't watch it until 2 years ago.
So hi, I'm Jonathan Bloomberg, writing for
Hi,
movies in Sweden.
nice to meet you.
Hi. So, well, the pleasure is all mine. So I'm a huge fan, and I've seen every episode of this show and really loved it.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
super dark, and your portrayal is amazing at times, even. I
Thank
would
you.
go that far. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
The pleasure is, as I said, all mine. I actually wanted to kind of go back to what you've said is one of your first real acting jobs, playing Catherine Sacramone
Oh, yeah,
on The Sopranos many years ago. And I kind of feel like the vibe on that show kind of this reminds me of
sure.
that, but in a darker way. So I was wondering how you kind of feel like doing that show many years ago and now doing this one. How do they relate those
I mean,
experiences?
definitely. I mean, The Sopranos was that was my first time on a set. I mean, it was my first job, and I didn't know the show because I couldn't afford HBO. So I knew it was a big show, but I'd never seen it. In fact, I didn't watch it until 2 years ago. And turns
Really?
out
Yeah.
it is the best show of all time. So that was fun to learn. But I think that sort of helped me because I was so sort of I was like so new. I mean, I was 20 years old and 19 maybe, and I'd like never didn't know how cameras worked. I didn't know, I really didn't know anything. And Steve Buscemi was the director, and I'd always been a huge fan of his. I loved him. I continue to love him in everything that he does, and he was so incredibly kind to me, and so um, warm and wonderful, and made me feel really safe. And didn't have to because I wasn't like a big, I come on for like a couple lines. That's
Yeah.
I'm like an itty bitty baby. I'm so brand new, and yeah. So I don't think I understood. I mean, I knew that show was about the mafia, but because I hadn't seen it, I I just didn't know the ins and outs of it. And there are definitely similarities. I mean, you're exploring the organized crime world of two major cities, one real and one imaginary-ish. But
Yeah.
yeah, there are similarities, but those characters are very different for sure, you know. So it
Definitely.
was actually
Yeah.
really great to come back and as to maybe dip a toe back in that world as Sophia, which felt definitely
You've grown.
was a dream. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And as I said, I really love your portrayal on the
Thank
show.
you.
Obviously, also I love what Colin is doing. So I was
Oh
wondering
yeah.
how was it to share some of those very important scenes with him on this show?
A dream. He's um I mean, he's such an incredible actor, but he's also a very, very kind person and an incredibly present partner. And so I really felt like, I could go to the ends of the earth with him, and we'd be like in lockstep together. And I just think he's so fabulous in this. He's extraordinary. So it was a pleasure to work with him. To know him is to love him.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for taking the time to speak with me today, and
Yeah.
best of luck with the premiere now.
Thank you so much.
That was really, really special. And I just really enjoyed the way that he and Rob played off of each other. And I was like, you know what? I just think it would be really fun to release this just so people can see what they had done.
So hi, I'm Jonathan Bloomberg, writing for movies in Sweden.
Hi, how are you?
Well, I'm doing great now, and I get to speak with you, Matt. I'm a big
Great.
fan.
Oh, thanks so much.
Yeah, I loved what you did with the Batman the movie,
Thank you.
and and setting the and little did you know that was setting this amazing show up as well.
Yeah, I mean,
So
it was my hope. So, but it's one of those things where you never know whether or not you'll be able to bring something like this into fruition. And now it's happened, and it's very, very exciting.
exactly. And what I kind of liked with your Batman movies, how kind of grounded it felt within this world that we've visited many times before, where it felt more like a superhero movie or something. This
Sure.
almost feels like it could have happened, or it does happen in some
Yeah.
way. And I kind of
Thank
feel
you.
like,
We tried to do exactly that. So thank you.
yeah.
The way that
And
I look at it is one of the things that I tried to do when I was trying to figure out how to write the movie and how to create the scenes with him was I was like trying to figure out not even so much how he would be a superhero in the classic sense, but more why would a guy decide it was a good idea to be a vigilante by wearing a cowl and cape, and what's that about? And actually
yeah,
was thinking about the Zodiac killer, and that's actually where the idea for the Riddler came about. But that idea was really to look at the idea of what Batman does, which is the idea that to wear an outfit that allows you not only to be anonymous but creates a level of fear, which is part of the conceit of the character, and then to try and tell a world in which that could exist. And I was like, well, that actually happened in the real world, so this could feel very, very real and grounded if we do it in a certain way. And we've tried to do that in such a way that the Oz's show really feels like, in a way, like it's in the tradition of like great gangster shows, great gangster movies, the idea of digging into a noir story that's really about the dark American dream and about trying to tell the story in that way. But again, very grounded.
yeah. I kind of feel like it's basically like what if The Sopranos was uh, more cinematic almost, because it kind of has that extra layer of like your movie it did. Like everything is shot very nicely and
Oh,
cut,
thank you.
cut
Yeah.
together in a good way. But it does feel like one of those big crime shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was absolutely the intention, was to make it a part of that legacy, that history. And that's what felt fresh about doing it, was to take this character and to define him in a way that brings him into that kind of exploration, because those stories are always about the character that's at the center of it. So it's not just about their ambition, but what drives the ambition? Where does that come from? What lengths will they go to get it? And in that way is a very American sort of story. And so I think fit into what, I wanted our sort of Gotham to be.
Yeah. And having now made the Batman and now been a part of this show as a producer as well, and also knowing that this show would lead into your follow-up movie, how has the show influenced your writing of the movie?
I mean, I sort of let Lauren know where I needed the story to begin, which is, obviously a week after the last movie. I wanted to take advantage of that moment of sort of the power vacuum and the potential violence. And that's one of the things we're talking about at the end of the movie. And then I needed the story to end in a certain way so that it could connect to the next film. And then there were some details as those stories were developing. I was going, oh, well, that'll be interesting because, as Matts and Tomlin and I are writing that movie, this is all going on simultaneously. It's like you have two jumbo jets in the air, right? You need to be air traffic control. And I'm sort of like going, oh, this thing that Lauren's done with this character, now they've cast this person, that might be interesting for us to draw on. And so there are little subtle ways in which what I'm doing has evolved too. But the thrust of it was to make sure that I kind of gave her these parameters of where I needed it to begin and end so that it could lead into what we were doing as we were building what we were doing. And then little details of what she was doing ended up sort of influencing what we were doing. So the question that you asked is exactly right. There are these ways in which they both inform each other to a degree.
Yeah, and I also wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for releasing that beautiful scene with Barry as the Joker.
Oh, thank you.
Because I feel like those things don't always see the light of day, and even though it didn't made it to this movie, it would have been so.
And he's such a special actor, and I just we had such a wonderful experience shooting it, and I just felt like he did something that was really, really special, and I just really enjoyed the way that he and Rob played off of each other. And I was like, you know what? I just think it would be really fun to release this just so people can see what they had done.
We might hopefully get to see him revisit that role in the
Who
future
knows?
sometime.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah.
So thanks a lot for taking your time to speak with me today, and best of luck with this premiere and also with the shooting of
The Batman 2. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Good talking to you.
That's kind of what it felt like looking at Colin for the first time when he walked in with the Oz makeup. It was like, I know that's Colin Farrell there. My brain knows it, but my brain's also telling me that this is not that human being.
Yeah, hi, I'm Jonathan Blumberg, writing for movies in Sweden.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi. So it's an honor getting to speak with you. I have watched the entire season, and boy, do I love it.
Oh, good.
It's really good. And I must say, I was also a big fan of Runaways back when that was airing.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
So it's nice to see Alex grown up in this one.
Yeah.
So how was it that you actually got involved with this show? Because I kind of feel like this is a role that a lot of people probably went after, but you landed it. So
I
you
would
must have done something
imagine.
right.
I would imagine if they had any wits, they'd be trying for it as badly as I wanted it. Yeah. It comes in like any other part that's ever come into my life. It's just you get the email that they want you to audition for it, that someone wants to see you. You do the audition, they like it. You meet the director, they like it. You meet Colin, they like it, and then all of a sudden you're moving to New York. You got a week to move, and we're shooting in a month. So it's just it all felt very fast and very quick. But I couldn't have been more excited.
Yeah. So I'm guessing then that you had already seen the Batman prior to this, and saw what Colin had done in that. So you kind of knew what he was going to look like and stuff like that. But how was it actually to step out and share the scene with him?
Yeah, it's bizarre. It kind of feels like a magic trick is happening in front of your eyes, There's this sort of like giddy feeling you get when you see someone do a trick and you're like, oh, I don't know how, then you know in your heart that it's not real, but your brain and everything that else is telling you that it did just happen. That's kind of what it felt like looking at Colin for the first time when he walked in with the Oz makeup. It was like, I know that's Colin Farrell there. My brain knows it, but my brain's also telling me that this is not that human being, and it doesn't sound like that human being, it doesn't walk like that human being, and nothing about this person says Colin. And so it is this bizarre thing that goes on, and getting to act opposite, because I had seen the movie so many times, I'd seen it a bunch of times, and so then to get to see this incredible, performance by Colin in this show up close every single day, a part of me was
scary almost.
A bit of it was, especially when I first met him. When I first met him, there was an actual bit of fear that I didn't think I'd feel, but I was a little bit scared when I first saw Oz's face. I think just because I do such a good job with the makeup that it feels a little bit scary looking at him.
Yeah.
All the scars and everything. But I think that when it came down to actually doing the job, like doing the scenes together, by then, I'm already so much in my own head that I'm not necessarily thinking so much about, what's going on outside of it, but it just becomes about that moment, and it was easier. It was much easier a month in when we started shooting than it was the first week when I first met him.
Yeah, I can imagine that. So how much of the script were you allowed to read before kind of accepting the role? And did you know, like when you started shooting, how your part of the story would end up?
Yeah, by the time we started shooting, I knew the arc for Victor for sure. I think we got the first 3 all at once, and then we got I think 4 and 5, and then we got the rest of them all in one dump. And so I had already known what was going to happen. Getting to read what happens, I knew it was going to happen with Victor in his world. Getting to read what happens, with Cristin's character, Sophia, with the history between what's going on between Oz and Francis, and with his brothers. I mean, there's so much that I didn't know about, that I was reading as an audience member, as a fan, just going, that it was blowing my mind with the way the show was going. And so I think I was just genuinely excited to be a part of something that I felt was special, that I felt was really good. And so, yeah, bringing that from page, which was all on the page, bringing that to screen was, I guess, the rest of our job.
Is there any particular moment shooting that you kind of will carry with you now afterwards?
Oh man, there's so many. Which ones come to mind though? Um, that I'll remember. Um, there was the first day we shot. Dee brought this up earlier. There was the first day that we shot. Um, and we just started improvising some stuff and going off the cuff and trying things. And I think that I've noticed this that on a few sets now, when I'll finally feel the most comfortable is when I improvise something and I get a laugh. Then I'm like, all right, like I can settle down now, like I can relax. And there was a scene that we did. It's the very first time we meet Francis in the show. Um,
Oh yeah.
and so I walk in and I'm kind of like a little bit scared, and I'm kind of witnessing what's happening between Oz and Francis, and then there's like a little moment that we had a little bit of fun. I don't think it makes the final cut. We had a little bit of fun going back and forth about Victor not touching things and just keep to yourself. Don't touch anything. Stay right there. And going back and forth for a little bit was a little bit of fun. So that I'll remember forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it did translate onto what I've seen, and as I said, I loved it. So
Oh,
thanks a
good.
lot for taking time to speak with me today, and best
Thank
of
you
luck with
very
the premiere.
much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
The best benefit of knowing that you have an actor like Colin who you get to write for is that he'll make everything you write better.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Blumberg, writing for movies in Sweden.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Well, the pleasure is all mine. I've seen every episode of this show, and I'm really loving it. So,
Oh,
thank you
thanks.
for making a great 8 hours of TV for us to watch.
Thank you for watching.
Yeah. So, I know that you kind of got to watch Colin as the Penguin even before everyone else got to see me in the Batman. So I was wondering a bit how it was to kind of write this story, knowing who would play the main character, and kind of maybe getting some influences from him as well, and let that influence how you would write the story. Is that how it went down, or how was it for you?
Yeah, well, it was a very unique experience because I was picturing Oz, this fictional character, more than I was picturing Colin Farrell playing a
Yeah,
character. That felt very unique, and I don't know if I'll ever experience something like that again. The best benefit of knowing that you have an actor like Colin who you get to write for is that he'll make everything you write better. And I also know what a talented actor he is as just like a fan of his work prior. So he can do comedy and drama, and he toes this line and has everything feel very organic and real. So I was just honored to be able to write for someone like him and excited to try to, engage more deeply in a character like Oz and make sure that he was as complicated and flawed as possible, and try to have the audience understand this man, not necessarily like him, but want to watch him and see what he does next.
yeah. And I really feel like that's exactly how I'm watching the show. And this is a really dark tale that you take us on. And could you talk a bit about how you wanted to kind of structure the story? Because this is in a world where there are superheroes, but I kind of feel like it's more down to earth on what we get to see. It almost feels like this could be in any city in our world, even.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to have you feel like even though it takes place in a fictional city like Gotham, that you could attribute any city that you are more familiar with and feel like it could take place there. Um, you know, even Batman's not technically a superhero. He's just a man in who decides to
In
put
a
on a
suit.
cape,
Yeah.
yeah, in a suit. And so that already differentiates him, and that's what makes, I think, Batman as a character and then Gotham City at large just so uniquely different. And it's so grounded. Matt Reeves' version of Gotham is so gritty and normal, really, compared to so many other iterations. And so just taking that inkling and making sure that Oz feels just like a real man. We know he's technically in a prosthetic, but the goal is to have you so immersed in the experience that you forget.
you're watching that you view him as his own person, as I do now. And so to make sure that while we're honoring the comics, it feels like an engaging and interesting enough story that it starts in a place where you're charmed by this person. And as you dig deeper into him psychologically, you start to unpack darker truths and darker attributes of him, and then really leaving it up to the audience to decide what they feel about someone like him.
Yeah, and we already know that there is going to be a movie with the character in it, so everyone watching will know that. Is that something that you kind of also have to acknowledge when you write? Because we know that, well, he is someone that can't be taken out, since we know that he will survive and be in something else different in the future. But does that make it harder to write a story in that way, or does that even help to have that outside of the project?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I think in some ways it makes it more challenging, but I think it just puts more pressure on the storytelling itself, and to make sure that you're doing the best you can creatively to engage people and make them want to watch, that you're writing things that feel very surprising, regardless of what people might think they know at the end. I feel strongly that I don't think people will know where it goes in the end.
Yeah, I
And that
can testify to
oh,
that.
good. That the experience of it makes it worth watching, and that whether you think you know what's going to happen to him at the end or not, the goal is always to have you engaged every episode, have every episode feel like its own story, and have it all connect in the end for across the 8 episodes.
Yeah, and I also feel like there is kind of an art form to have a character that is that good at talking himself out of stuff, that I really kind of wanted to say, well, how is he going to get out of this jam? And you always delivered on that, so I was really happy watching
No,
the show.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah, because it is challenging to write a character who is impulsive but also calculated and smart, and you put them in situations that then they have to smartly get out of in an inventive way. It's definitely a challenge. So I'm happy to hear that you feel that way.
Yeah, thanks a lot for taking your time to speak with me, and best of luck with the premiere now.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
He just took it away for a second, and my blood ran cold. I felt the room turn like into ice, and I realized at that moment what Colin had been offering me for a year was just this pure, fiery love.
Hi, I'm Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
Hi. So I'm writing for Movie Scene in Sweden, and it's an honor to be able to speak with you.
You as well.
Well, thank you. So I watched every episode
You
of
did?
this season. Yeah, of course. I couldn't stop
Wow.
watching it.
You got to watch the whole thing. God bless you.
Yeah.
So
And now I have to wait for everyone else to
It's a big
catch up.
mouthful. Did you watch it in one sitting?
I wish I could have, but I had to.
No, that's
do
a
it
lot.
into-
That asks a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a really good watch, and it's really violent, but it sure has its moments of more uh, drama and like a lot of feelings and stuff. And I feel like your character is on maybe that side of the story on in most of the season. So I was wondering how you kind of came into this show, and if you were allowed to read the entire thing or only your parts, and how much did you know when you agreed to do this?
I didn't get to read the whole thing. No one got to, I mean, maybe Colin got to read the whole thing, but no, I only read 3 episodes. So I had to decide whether I wanted to sign on based on those 3 episodes. And they were just beautifully written things. So I knew that I wanted to do it, but I didn't know the backstory, and I didn't know what was going to happen to us. So then, but Lauren sat down with me. We didn't know each other. Craig Zobel was the person that found me and sort of brought me into the fold. And God bless you, Craig Zobel. And So I sat down with Lauren for the first time, and she was like, okay, well, I'll tell you the story of what happens to Francis. And I just could not believe what she was saying. I felt like someone had just given me a huge, I don't know, like I'd won the lottery and I was going to have to pay taxes on this. I couldn't believe how much she was offering me in terms of this story. Part, that as you know, the story, the backstory of the
Yeah.
boys, and the backstory of how Oz, and because I understand, there's a lot of trope of the driven mother who pushes her son, and they have a tough relationship. But the fact that there was a basis for all of her, whenever she needs to push him away, whenever she has those waves of revulsion with him, that the deep basis of that, I didn't know that when I first signed in, and where the story goes and how that thing ties itself up and how it's all tied together in terms of them, and then that crazy ending where he dresses up Eve. I mean, so I didn't see it coming when I signed on. I was perfectly happy to play this, really beautifully written, interesting mom of what Colin had created in Batman. That's all I knew.
Yeah.
So it was an amazing day that I'll never forget, when Lauren was just sitting across the desk from me telling me the story. And then this happens, and then that happens, and then that happens. She just told me this mythic tale. I thought she was
Exactly.
kidding at one point. I was like, really?
I really feel like I could only imagine it being like an actor's dream to kind of get to do something that really comes full circle
Yeah.
within this story. And I was you mentioned Colin, and I wanted to know a bit how it was working with him on the show. His character is kind of different in his interactions with you playing his mother, so you kind of get to meet a different version of him than most of the other actors get to meet. So how was your interactions with Colin?
I think I'd have to say we were the luckiest. It was the luckiest kismet I've ever experienced, where we were just compatible animals. I never saw him not without being full on penguin. So
Yeah.
I think I met him one time, and in that meeting he was kind of like, I'll let you lead, and I was kind of, well, that's a perfectly nice thing to say, but we don't know each other at all. We never had rehearsal. We never sat down and talked. We just showed up, and we were just blessed that there was some kind of lightning struck, and we just were so compatible and so on the same page. And I felt like the thing we were having to do was so extreme, but I trusted him completely to keep us like out of the realm of melodrama. There was just a way that I knew that he would take care of that. I would take care of him. It doesn't happen all the time. You can shoot around it not happening, but when it happens, you just have to, accept the blessing. And I feel like that's what happened with he and I. He offered me so much power in that relationship, and I didn't need, and so much love. He was just pouring love at me with such ferocity. I didn't even really realize how much he was giving me until the very end, the day when we shot the very last thing in the show, and he took it away. He just took it away for a second, and my blood ran cold. I felt the room turn like into ice. And I realized at that moment what Colin had been offering me for a year was just this pure, fiery love. Just his regard was so constant. And I don't know, I was just the luckiest lady in the world. We worked, I think we both worked very hard. Like it was kind of like boxing or playing tennis. We both worked very hard in our corners, and then we would just come in. We would work hard in our corners and come in, and we had to work hard because we had this dialect that was so specific, and we had to work very technically on that. We had to work very hard on. I had this disease. I had to work very hard on that, on finding the exact world that lived, and being with a woman who was a physical therapist for people with Parkinson's and things like that to get. So we were both in our corners doing our homework, but when we came in, we were just there with each other. And
Yeah, I loved it. I
we were
loved it.
lucky. We were just so lucky. So we've never spoken of it. And it was just one of those things that you're just like, oh, don't touch it. Don't touch it. You're so lucky you had that.
Yeah. So I'm so glad I got to speak with you, and I'm also a big the Path fan. So
Oh,
thanks
yes.
a lot.
I loved doing that.
Yeah.
That was a
Best of
wonderful
luck with
group of people.
best of luck with the premiere now.
Thank
Bye.
you very much.